Yeah, it's Chodesh Tov. This week, Parashat Shoftim, we discussed the opening of the Parsha, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha, where in the first few Psukim of the Parsha, first of all, most and for all, we find this shoresh, the word of tzedek, which translates into justice, but we saw that it's not really only justice.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of other strange things about the Psukim, where it's not so clear who Moshe is speaking to. Is he speaking to Am Yisrael? Is he speaking to the judges? It's also not so clear what the Isur is. We only have an Isur of taking bribery, but it's fine to give bribery. It wasn't so clear. We dived into these Psukim.
Exactly. There's so much more to this concept of tzedek. People love to quote this, Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof. You should chase justice, and tzedek double, twice justice. Although when you dive deep into the Psukim, when you dive deep into understanding of what tzedek is, you will see that justice might not really be the right term for it. Hope you enjoy it. Take a look. Chodesh Tov, Rosh Chodesh Elul today. This week, Parashat Shoftim. The past few years, we've discussed some of the mitzvahs that we find in the Parsha. This year, what I want to talk about are the first few Psukim of the Parsha. Some of the Psukim that many of us know by heart, since they are very famous. One of them is even so famous, it became this general saying in the world around the concept of justice, because this idea of justice, of tzedek, repeats itself again and again and again in these first few Psukim. And when you look at these Psukim, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sha'arecha v'shaftu et ha'am mishpat tzedek. You first of all have to ask yourself, when Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Am Yisrael and says, you should nominate these judges and the police in order to have a justice system in your towns, in your cities, you have to ask yourself, who is Moshe talking to? It seems in the beginning that he's talking to all of Am Yisrael. But then in the next pasuk, in the second one, he talks obviously directly to the judge, because he says, you shouldn't take bribe, lo tikach shochad, you shouldn't take bribe, lo tateh mishpat, you shouldn't judge unfairly. And obviously Moshe Rabbeinu again is talking here to the judges. So you really have to ask, who is Moshe turning to? Why isn't it clear? Why is it so vague? Is he talking to the nation? Is he talking to Am Yisrael? Or is he talking to the Shoftim, to the judges? And by the way, if he is talking to Am Yisrael in the second pasuk, why does it say lo tikach shochad? You shouldn't take bribe. It should say you shouldn't give bribe. Where is the isu to give bribe? Why does it only say you shouldn't take bribe? So to summarize everything up, three basic questions. First of all, who is Moshe talking to? Is he talking to the judges? Is he talking to the nation? Second of all, why are some of these commandments directed to the judges and not also to Am Yisrael? Obviously, you need two sides for each one of these things. And third of all, what is this concept of tzedek? We like to talk about it a lot. It's always in the news. In English, you would call it justice. Is it justice? Because it seems to be in many places. On the one hand, we have tzedek, which is din, which is justice. This is what you have to do. But on the other hand, we have many times that we find tzedek in the concept of tzedakah, of what we call chesed, which is the opposite of din, which is mercy, which is doing things which you don't have to do, which you are doing out of your own good faith. This is not the rule of law, but you are actually going a little bit extra for that person. The concept of tzedakah. So what is tzedek? Is it a din? Is it the rule of law? And this is what you have to do? Or is tzedek more a tzedakah, more of a rachamim, more of a chesed? What are these psukim here to teach us?
Well, I think, as you're saying, if we see it sometimes here and sometimes here, it can't be both. It can't also be din and also be chesed. It has to be something else. And maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe what it's teaching us, maybe the concept of tzedakah, what's unique about it is that it's not here or here. Sometimes we see the world as you're either going by what needs to be, or, this is what needs to be, but you're doing beyond that. Tzedakah is saying that sometimes the beyond that is the right thing to do. Maybe the concept of tzedakah, just like the term tzaddik, someone who is righteous, tzedakah is the right thing to do. The thing that is most right, that is most fit for that situation. Sometimes in a certain situation, the most fit, the most correct, the most right thing is actually chesed, like tzedakah. You have someone who's poor, you have someone who's in a need. The right thing to do is to help them out. Is that din? That's not din, but it's the right thing to do. And sometimes the right thing to do is din. Depends on the situation. This is why the term tzedakah we see already in Tanakh by Yehuda and Tamar, where he says tzedakah mimeni. Tzedek was din. You can't be more din. If this is what's supposed to be, you can't be more. It's not something you can compare. But if tzedek is what's right to do, then yeah, there are many good and important things to do. And life is constantly about, you have a lot of things, they're all important, and you want to find what is the thing that is most right to do in this situation. And maybe that's exactly what the pasuk is saying. That's why it repeats itself. Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof. Don't get caught up in that first level. They come in, this one's complaining, this one's saying that thing. You can get caught up in, oh, it's obvious what's happening here. here, this is what's right to do. No, no, no. Search further. There are other levels of truth. There are other levels of what's really right. And only when you actually search can you find them. That's what it's saying. Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof. There's not one tzedek. There are many tzedek. And you need to search them and search them. We know that halachically, if a court all say that someone has to die, someone murdered, and everyone agrees that that's the right thing to do, we know the halacha is the exact opposite. You can't listen to them because obviously, if nobody could see any other side here, they weren't actually searching for tzedek. They were caught up on that first level. Only once we know that they actually did that process of chasing lirdof, chasing the tzedek, chasing what's right, then we know that they're really in search, not only for some truth, some din, but also for what is really right in this situation. And I think when we understand that tzedek is something that is more complex, it is more in the middle between din and chesed, I think it also explains that other question. You said, why do we have a law about taking bribery and not about giving bribery? But as we know, the concept of bribery in Torah is not just about giving someone money. It's something much, even if I say good morning to the judge and he goes, oh, that's so nice, there's a certain level of bribery happening there. And that's what the Torah is saying. I'm not going to tell people not to give bribery because it's the most natural thing that someone will do everything they can do. Again, not intentionally, cheating the law, but trying to do their best to show that they are the right side, because there are two right sides. There are two different truths that are coming together, and each one is trying to sell or show their truth. It's not your responsibility to say, oh, I shouldn't do that because maybe that'll cause the judge to like me too much. So I'll be not nice to the judge and then he'll just judge me. No, you should do what you feel is right. And we know that people will present the things from their perspective. The judge, who is supposed to be in between, he's responsible of taking a step back and not getting caught up and not taking bribe. And maybe that's exactly what answers your first question. You said, who are we speaking to? Are we speaking to Am Yisrael? Are we speaking to the judges? Maybe purposely the Torah left it a little vague. We were talking to you and then suddenly we're talking to the judges to tell you, just as the Torah starts, Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol shelechet. Not only you should put judges in your city, you should put them for you. Many times we think for me is when things work out my way, when we go to court and things happen the way I want them to happen. No, it's in your interest. You know that you are an objective, and that's fine. That's fine. We're not asking you to be objective. You should believe in yourself, but you should want there to be, it's for your good that there's a court system that's searching and doesn't only see your tzedek, and there is a certain tzedek with you, but searches and chases all of the tzedeks and finds what is the most correct thing, the right thing to do in this situation. That's what a tzaddik does. He sees all the different things in front of him and decides, what does God want for me now? And that's what the judge who judges tzedek is supposed to do.
Very good, very good. And like what you're saying, I really also think that the concept of tzedek is somewhere in between the din and the chesed. It's not din, it's not chesed, it's tzedek. It's the right thing to do. In English, you would say righteousness is always looking for the right thing to do, which sometimes is the exact rule of law. And sometimes you have to know when to give a little bit of leeway, when to give a little bit over, a little bit extra in order to find the right result. And very interestingly also, this idea of Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof in the Pasuk and Pshat level, it might sound like go after the rule of law, try to do the Midat Hadin. But very interestingly, there's a very known Mishnah, a Mishnah that discusses this idea that the Dayan has to ladun din emet. Dayan the dan din emet la'amito, a real truthful din, the straightforward din, the idea that the din is straight and you can't bend it. And then this learning is learned from the Pasuk of Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof. This Mishnah, you know where it appears? It appears in the end of Masechet Peah, the Masechet that teaches us matnot aniyim, the mitzvahs of tzedakah, basically. The Mishnah that teaches us to do good with the aniyim. Yes, there is an aspect of a mitzvah, of a rule. You have to know to put the matnot aniyim on the side. That's the rule. But also, this whole point of the rule is to make sure that the people themselves understand that they have to give from themselves. They have to do chesed from themselves with the aniyim also. Like we discussed in last week's Parsha a few years ago about patoach tiftach et yadecha, the mitzvah of giving tzedakah. The mitzvah of giving tzedakah is not only about the money you give to the poor person so the poor person won't be that poor anymore, but more than what the poor person receives from Baal HaBayit, from the person who gives the money. The person who gives the money, Baal HaBayit, actually receives from the ani, mekabel me'ani, because giving the tzedakah changes something internally in you. It makes you a better person. It makes you a more righteous person. It makes you more a right person. It corrects your way to the right way. This is what tzedakah is about. This is what matnot aniyim is about. This is what it means to be a tzaddik. This is what it means to be a righteous person. And we also asked, why does it only say lo tikach shochad? You shouldn't take bribe. Maybe this is exactly that. Taking bribe, taking something to yourself changes something in you. And by giving tzedakah, actually, the mitzvah is exact opposite. It's to give tzedakah. Patuach tiftach et yadecha. You have to open up your hand and give out tzedakah. The exact opposite concept from bribe is tzedakah. But also, like we were just saying, tzedakah, by giving, you're also affecting yourself. You're also actually giving away, but you are changing something within you. You are taking back something to yourself when you give out tzedakah. Because even tzedakah, which is, again, the opposite of deen, the chesed is the opposite of deen, it still also changes something in you, because this is what it means to be a righteous person, is about doing the right thing based on your understanding. And probably this is the most important concept here, because also from halacha we have this idea, this concept of en la dayan ela ma she'einav ro'ot. The dayan, the judge, only knows what he can see, what that person can see. He's not a navi. He can't read minds. He's not a mentalist. He doesn't see what's not in front of him. And this is probably what's missing the most in a justice system. Justices, judges, that understand that they have to understand that it's up to them. It's in their hands. Not every judge understands, but they also have to understand that they're not perfect, that they can make mistakes, that they have to know and listen out. And this is also what the Midrash, what the Gemara discusses, that doing the tzedek is understanding that if a dayan sits down in the deen, if the judge sits down and he hears his colleagues say something better than what he says, he won't be afraid to change his mind. He won't be afraid to come out and say, you know what, I was wrong. The right thing to do is to listen to what he's saying, and understanding that they are not perfect. Maybe this is what's missing the most from this world of justice. Not only that it's in the hands of the judge, but also the judge himself should understand that they are not perfect, that they are not on a different level of the people themselves. Like we talked a few weeks ago on Parshat Dvarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu mentions the idea that Yitro gave him to do Sarei Alafim, to put this justice system, Moshe Rabbeinu changed it around a little bit and did a different justice system, a justice system that comes from Am Yisrael. Maybe this also answers why it says Shoftim veShotrim titen lecha, for you, and why it's so vague who Moshe is talking to, because Moshe is talking to the entire nation, because the judges reflect the nation. The judges should reflect the nation. The judges are not this group of individuals who sit there in the ivory tower disconnected from the nation and decide things based on their understanding because they're smarter than everybody else and they are perfect. They can't make mistakes. No, the judges are a reflection from Am Yisrael. They should come out from Am Yisrael, like we discussed over there. This is what it means. Shoftim veShotrim titen lecha. For you, for all of Am Yisrael, this is what tzedek is. This is what real justice is. This is what righteousness is. This is what the tzedek that all the Nevi'im talk about and are hoping for and are dreaming for in order to bring the Geula. This is what the Geula is dependent on. When the judges, when the rule of law, when the justice system will reflect the nation and what the nation wants. This is what all the Nevi'im are hoping for. This is what all the Nevi'im are preaching for, to have this justice, to have this tzedek, which is not deen, which is not made by these perfect people, but actually which reflects the right thing to do, which reflects the nation, the people of Am Yisrael, each one individually and as a nation together. This is what tzedek is. This is what tzedakah is about. This is the matnot aniyim, the tzedakah that we give, but affects the person giving it, understanding that this whole tzedek, this whole tzedakah comes from within the nation. This is what it means. Tzion b'mishpat tifadeh ushaveh b'tzedakah. This is the tzedakah we're all waiting for.
It's interesting what you're saying about them not being perfect. Maybe that's also why the way Moshe Rabbeinu says it is he turns directly to the judge and turns to you and says, Lo tikach shochad. Because usually when we speak about bribery, oh yeah, they take bribery. That's me? Nah. So Moshe looks at you in the eye and says, yeah, you don't look left or right. Lo tikach shochad. This is talking about you. Don't think that this is not relevant for you. You're beyond that. And that's why he continues and says, Ki hashochad ye'aver einei chachamim. Yeah, you're wise. You're great. You have a lot of wisdom. There's a reason you got your job. But yeah, this is you. You, the chacham, this is who I'm talking to. It's relevant to you. And maybe this is also why the Torah ends with something really, really dramatic. It says, Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof leman tichyeh v'yarashta. Not leman yirbu yimechem, so you'll have many days. Not so you'll last in the land. No, so you'll just live. Because without tzedek in the broader term, as we're saying, of tzedakah, of searching what really is needed in every situation, there is no life at all. People can't live together. Not in a world with no rules and not in a world where everything goes exactly by the rule. Only in a place, in a world of tzedakah. That's how you will live. And we already said, when it says leman, we saw this in previous parshas, it's not, you'll get a sachar. This is going to be the prize for doing tzedek. No, it's part of the mitzvah itself. Without this, there will be no life. There are many psukim in Tanakh that dive into this, into how much not having tzedek completely takes apart the nation.
Exactly. Obviously, a very hot topic, especially here in Eretz Yisrael for the past few months. The idea of the concept that we need tzedakah, we need tzedek in order to have a society without tzedakah, without tzedek, without the real tzedek, is a society that will fall apart and is a value that life in a society is dependent on. And we can go on for much, much longer, but we're out of time, so we'll end here. Of course, if you enjoyed this, please feel free to share it around. Comment on YouTube below. Tell us what you liked, or if you didn't like it, tell us why you didn't like it. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing and help us grow the channel. And shkoyach Yitzi.
Shkoyach Tuvia, Chodesh Tov, and Shabbat Shalom.
Chodesh Tov, Shabbat Shalom, and Mitzvah Shem. We'll talk again.